he said, here, try this.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Recovery. I'm Ryan Nolan. Today's guest is Jennifer Levi. Jen has spent 12 years in the medical field and recently earned her peer recovery specialist certification. She is joining us today to talk openly about her journey to recovery. With 18 months of continuous sobriety following a relapse with alcohol, Jen stands as a true vision of hope for other women. She's here to share the reality of long-term recovery and the crucial lesson that for us, there is no such thing as a social drinker. Jen, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to hear your story. The floor is yours.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Again, I'm an addict named Jen, and I'm very grateful to be here. Um, I guess I'll just start, from the beginning. I didn't really start off my addiction until I was about 23. During my high school years, I always socially partied and dabbled, but I never really used the substance every day. And it wasn't until after I had my first daughter, that I was introduced to pain pills, and that's where the addiction really took off. And I will say, my father passed away when I was 6 from the disease of addiction, and I always said that I wasn't going to do, that drug, what he did. Anything else I had tried, but I always said I wouldn't do that because that's, what killed him. And unfortunately, when I started using the pain pills, I didn't realize it was the same as heroin. That was probably back in 2005, maybe, when it was, fairly new of the epidemic.
Yeah.
And we didn't have much, knowledge on it then as we do today. And I was naive to it. So what had me started taking, a pill for a toothache or this or that here and there, slowly after I was, full blown, sick. And I didn't realize at first that I was going through withdrawal. I just thought I had the flu. I never would say that I'm sick from, a drug.
I just wanted to take a brief moment to remind everyone, if you like this content and you want to support our channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Thank you very much. Now back to the show.
And at that time, my children's father, his disease had already progressed to heroin. And that's when he said, well, here, if you do this, you'll feel better. And I didn't want to believe him, but I was so sick. I eventually gave in and did it. And that went on for years and years and years. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2009 from the disease. And that was a very hard time for me. During that time, we had an open DIFUS case. And after he passed away, I had a DIFUS case while he was still alive, and I got the kids back fairly quick. I was able to stop using during that time. However, after he passed away, I said I was going to stay clean. I wasn't going to use. And I did that for a long time till once again I got into a relationship. The person I was seeing was, selling pills, and I thought I could be around it. And next thing you know, I was my own best customer. So that's where it started, like, all over again. And I found myself trying to raise the kids by myself, trying to do everything by myself, and while using the pills. And I don't exactly know who made the call on me, but I had DIFUS back in my life again. And because it was the second time, they were, a lot more strict. They like, I had, once I failed my test, they immediately took the kids. Thankfully, my mom took them. But then that was the first time I really went into like a rehab facility. And I decided to stay there for 3 months. I had gave up my home, my job, my car, everything was gone, put in storage, and I went to rehab. I think I wasn't really doing it for myself back then. I was more focused on just trying to get my kids back again. That even though that's when NA was introduced to me, and I was learning all the things, it still wasn't totally for me that I wanted to fully stop using, because during this time I would drink too. It just wasn't like an everyday thing. So when I got out of rehab, I had to do the IOPs, the meetings, all the things they tell you to do. And it was almost a 2-year process that my mom had the kids that time. she almost had to adopt them. And thankfully, I did everything I could, and I did get them back. And then when I got them back, that's when I was like full into going to meetings. I got my sponsor, got my home group, did everything I was told to do. But then, life starts getting better. You get a better job. You start, meeting other people in the workplace. And I probably stayed about 3 years, I want to say, without using anything,
Huge.
together. And then, it started looking pleasant to having coworkers go out for a drink, or there was a few people I was friends with in the rooms that left and they were socially drinking. So to me, I was like, well, I never really had a problem with alcohol.
Right.
So I could do that too, and it's legal. And within time, I stopped going to meetings less and less, because it was also hard, because being a single mom, I didn't always have, sitters while I was going to the meetings, and I just chose not to bring them. So less and less, I was going to less and less meetings, and before you know it, I was drinking, and that stayed
And
social. Oh, go ahead.
I wanted to take a quick minute and let everybody know about my workbooks that are available on Amazon: the Serial Relapser and the Recovery Workbook, For Us, By Us. If you or someone you know is struggling, these are good tools to get back on track. Now back to the show. The disease, the disease of addiction is the only disease that tells you you don't have one, and it tells you, oh, I deserve to have a drink, or, I've been doing really well. I can go out and be normal again, And
Mm-hmm.
I know it's been my experience that I can't have any mind altering substances or it'll bring me back. And I had to take a good look at reservations. Like, on one hand, we say we need Narcotics Anonymous, we need to get clean. And on the other hand, we're saying when we get our life together, I'll just smoke weed or I'll have a drink here and there. I've heard, a wide range of things that people say. And it always leads you back to your drug of choice because your brain remembers, and it doesn't so much remember the bad stuff. It just remembers that that's our reward, so to
Yes.
speak, And I wanted to ask you, did when you had that 3 years of sobriety, you had a sponsor and a home group and everything?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How
Yes.
did it how did that work with your sponsor? Like, were you calling them all the time, or how did that work?
I mean, I was very involved, and I did H&I was speaking
Right.
at, other facilities. Like, I was like really into it. I completed the 12 steps during that time
Mhm.
before my relapse. Like, I was really like all in NA. Um, and they say alcohol is a drug. And
Right.
like I said, when I started going to meetings less and less is when I relapse. And they say you like me. I believe meeting makers make it. Whether it's every day, once a week, something. I truly like for me. I have to stay in the meetings because that's the only thing that ever kept me 100% clean.
Right.
And I truly believe that. And because I made really good, relationships in the fellowship
Mhm.
during the time that I was drinking, I would say I had at least 10 people that still checked on me, that still spoke to me, including my sponsor. Um, because they all knew, like, they
Right.
saw what I was capable of, and they were my true friends. You make true friends in the fellowship, and they never lost hope that I would one day come back.
Right.
So when I did decide to come back, and when I was going through everything with the alcohol, I still had them to talk to, and I never lost touch with that. So I'm really grateful for that.
Mhm. And surrounding ourselves as addicts, surrounding ourselves with people that are like us, that are trying to get their lives together and that are going to the meetings, you start to build that personal relationship with people, and they can tell when you're not your usual recovery self, or like when you start to miss a meeting here, miss a meeting there. And it talks about in the book, we might not become rich and famous, but dreams can come true. And we have to make an effort to, like, move in the direction of recovery at all times, like sticking to our routine, which is a meeting a day, 7 days a week. Call your sponsor every day if you have to. And by building those routines, it keeps us grounded in recovery, and then we can focus on what it is we're trying to do. But it says we can backslide, with little or no effort, whatsoever. So obviously, you believe that that's what took you out, just stopping the meeting and not going as often
Yes,
and like
yes.
that, and that's what led to the relapse.
Yes, and then like I said, I had a few friends in the fellowship that they ended up leaving and they were socially drinking, so I thought, well, if they could do it, I can do it.
Right.
And and that's what happened. However, um, luckily I didn't go back to using pills or heroin during this time. It was just alcohol.
Mhm.
But when I tell you that I was so sick from the alcohol, like it made me so sick. I was hospitalized, my liver, I had liver damage, colitis, diverticulitis. Like
Right.
from what started as social drinking became to me putting whiskey in my coffee. I had lost a really good job because I was drunk at work. I mean, it just got so bad, probably almost worse than before. And I couldn't believe it that alcohol did this. Like, and that's what really made me take a big look like, okay, I have a problem. Alcohol is just as bad as heroin, if not worse for me. I need to do something because I was in and out of the hospital. Like I said, I lost my job. So I decided to go to rehab again. And then I stayed the 30 days. And I had a different job when I went.
Mhm.
They kept the job for me. And luckily, I've been clean ever since. But it was a struggle
Yeah.
to get to that point, like
Mhm.
to admit that the alcohol was the problem, because I was in such denial that no, it's not,
Mhm.
until, like I said, I knew I was putting stuff in my coffee every morning, but I was hiding it.
Right.
And I lied to my family, my friends. I was saying it's not that bad.
Mhm.
My kids knew. They're older now. My daughter's going to be 22, and my son, he's almost 19. And I really put them through hell.
Yeah.
And now they see, like, I think they can finally trust me again, to where if I say I'm going somewhere, they don't question it. Like,
Right.
where before it's like, where are you going? Like, they always wanted to smell my cup to make sure I wasn't
Right.
putting anything in it. They don't do that now. They do see I'm on the Zoom meetings every night. I do the 24/7 NA meeting every night before I go to bed. That is like my ritual. Like, I have to be on that meeting.
Mhm.
And
That's a
that's what's
great
been,
meeting.
yeah, I love
That is
it.
a great one.
And
Mhm.
that's been working for me. And like I said, I did get my peer recovery specialist certificate.
Mhm.
um, because, like I was saying, like when I first went to rehab the first time, I thought I was the worst mom in the world that lost their kids twice. I didn't want to talk about it. I was embarrassed, all the guilt and shame. And it
Mhm.
wasn't until someone else shared their story with me, and she told me, well, it happened to me too. I kind of felt like, I wasn't glad, but I was like,
Right.
okay, I can identify with someone. I'm not the worst mom, I'm not the only worst mom that lost her kids twice. And from there, I was able to like open up about it. And that's why I think it's important that other women know, like, you can lose your kids twice, or even men too, but it's possible to get them back. It's possible to put your life back together. Like, my life's not perfect. Like, I'm still a single mom. I have bills. I struggle with that. Every day is going to be a struggle, but I know I can get through it as long as I don't pick up. And that's
Right.
what's been keeping me grounded.
Hmm. Yeah, change is possible today. Addiction is no longer hopeless. There is a solution, maybe not a cure, but there is a solution, and that's the rooms of NA and AA. And by openly sharing our experience, strength, and hope, like what happened to you, you heard your story shared from somebody else, and it plants that seed of hope in somebody that says, oh, these people are like I am, or I am like these people. And um it just it shows that we can unlock the person that we're meant to be. We're not supposed to be out in the streets just being terrible humans. We we just keep doing the things that are suggested to us by the people in the rooms. Oh, I was going to say the single most important thing is one addict helping another.
Yes, I
Like, 'cause
truly believe
nobody
that.
understands an addict like an addict.
Yeah.
And the hardest thing for me was asking for help. I had to just vomit the words out, like I need help, and then I'd put my head down, And,
Right.
but that peer support specialist is huge. Now, how do you use that? Do you have a job in like a rehab or something?
I don't right now. I
Mhm.
recently got that certificate, probably about a year ago, and I just haven't found it like a good job to where I can afford to leave what I'm doing now. Because right now I'm in the medical field,
Yeah.
and the pay starts pretty low, and you have to like work your way up as anywhere. So I haven't been able to find a job that is like my pay now, so I would be able
Right.
to afford to do that. But that is my goal, to eventually switch over and do that, because I truly believe in helping people.
Right. And that title is huge. Just because you're not getting paid professionally doesn't mean that you can't use that training and that education to help other people. I mean, you have the lived experience anyway on top of it. So, just by doing this and going to meetings, I am positive you are changing lives. And, I'm trying to can carry the message to people that are still out there suffering somewhere, doing the things that I was doing, wondering, can I beat this thing? That might not know that there's hope. When I went to detox and I just felt like I couldn't do it. I'm
Right.
like, I did not see a life without drugs for me. I just did not see myself being clean because it was just so much easier. Well, it was hard, but in my mind, it was easier to go and get drugs, not to be sick every day. Like that was what I was used
Hmm.
to. Anything else was hard,
Yes,
and I
and then
didn't
when you do.
realize, yeah, I didn't
Oh,
realize how crazy that was until I got away from it. I got over the sickness and I started talking to people coming in, and you get to see yourself in them. When you talk to people, does it keep it green for you? Does it keep you, grounded, or like do you see yourself in somebody new?
it definitely does. Like sometimes when people first come in, or when they tell me, when they start talking about their DIFUS case,
Mhm.
it kind of brings it back for me. And then I just give. I don't like tell them what to do. I just tell them, like, this was my experience with my caseworker. This is what happened. This is what they had me do. And I learned honesty. Like, lying to those workers, they're only going to find out anyway. So you might as well just be honest with them. They're not out there. I used to think they were horrible. I hate them. Like, get out of my face. Don't come in my house. But by the time I was finished with it all, they were like on my side. Like, they helped me get into a place. They helped me furnish my house, and they really truly helped me. They wanted to see me succeed. They didn't want to take my kids. They didn't want my kids to have to be adopted. They wanted to see reunification. That's always the main goal. And it took me a while to realize that. Like, just be still, let them help you, and it'll be okay. And be honest with them, and it'll be okay. And that was my experience. And I was able to not have them be adopted. And like I was saying, it was hard for me because when I came out of the rehab that second time, I didn't, or no, the first time, I didn't have a house. I didn't have a job. Like, I was completely homeless.
Right.
So on top of trying to stay clean, I was homeless, trying to put my life back together to get the kids back. So it was a struggle. It really was. But I did it. And
Yeah.
unfortunately I didn't stay clean that time, but I was still able to get things back the way I needed to at that time.
Right. You know, when you said you relapsed, did you find it hard to get yourself back into the meetings?
I
Like,
I did, and it wasn't so much because I was embarrassed. It
mhm,
was just, it took me so long just to, because like I shared earlier, I still had communication with a lot of people that were
right,
close to me, but I was so stubborn to admit that alcohol was a problem for me, that it took me so long to get back.
right.
And
And that reminds me of myself when I had hopped substances. I went from weed, or no, I'm sorry, alcohol to weed, back to alcohol, and then it was pills, and then it was heroin, then it was fentanyl, but I remember having a problem with alcohol, and that should have been the first red flag. I didn't even like alcohol, but when I drank it, I couldn't stop drinking it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I was so young that I didn't realize, where I was headed. At what point through your life did you realize that maybe, or, looking back, maybe you were an addict then, or if even that was the case?
I think I was like in denial for a really long time about it. Even when I had like typhus the first time when the kid's father was still alive, I was just in such denial to myself. I didn't want to admit it. In my head, I was saying, okay, I think I probably do have a problem. Something, this isn't normal, but I would never say it out loud, and I would never talk about it for a really long time until I went to the rehab, because
Right,
I was ashamed. And I always said I wouldn't do the drug that, had that killed my dad. And then here I am doing the same thing.
right,
I was really embarrassed.
right. And you said it was the pills that got you going for on the heroin? Because I know
Yes.
for me it was I started well when I started the pills, it got really expensive, and then somebody
Hmm.
said, "Here, try this out. This is,
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
what happened, because I was still doing the pills. Their dad was my kid's father. He was already had progressed to the heroin, and we couldn't afford both of our habits. And that's when I was so sick. He said, "Here, try this." And like I said, I thought he was crazy. I'm like, that is not the same thing. But
mhm,
because I was so sick, I had to take care of the kids. I had to go to work, and I didn't want
right,
to go through that withdrawal. So I tried it, and then it was off to the races.
mhm, absolutely. When you mentioned losing your kids, like losing your kids, did that make you want to use more for any period of time? Like, did you feel so guilty or shameful that you just like used?
Until when I will say, when I was waiting to get into the rehab, there was some, like, probably, I want to say, like 3 weeks, like I was waiting for a bed, and I did use during that time because I was still sick. And
Right,
I just thought there was probably no way out of this, like, and I just felt horrible that I did that to them again, especially after they lost their dad. Like,
right,
it was really hard. And even like today, like, I still have like guilt and shame over the things that I put them through. And that's why our relationships aren't the greatest. It's gotten a lot better.
mhm,
But they have resentments against me, as they should.
right,
But the only thing I could do, like when they want to talk about the past or harp on me or say I did this, like, all I can do is tell them, like, I know I did those things.
mhm,
However, that's not me today. We can just focus on today, what's happening now, and try and move forward. And that's what I tell them.
right,
I mean, of course, I let them talk about their feelings if they want, because their feelings are valid feelings.
right,
But I try to not dwell on that past, because if I do, it's only going to bring my self esteem down about myself as a parent. And I know I'm not like a bad parent, so to say. I just made bad choices and did put them in harm.
right.
But like I said, the only thing I can do now is show them that I'm not going to do those things anymore.
Right. Do your children, do they understand like NA and its principles and maybe like kind of what you're doing to stay clean
They
nowadays?
do. Especially, it's funny because during like my drinking, my daughter would tell me alcohol is a drug,
Mhm,
because she's heard the lingo.
mhm,
And I would just say, it's legal. It's legal. It's not going to make me sick. Until then, I ended up in the hospital,
right.
sicker than ever from the drinking.
Mhm,
So yeah, they do understand it, and they do like me to go to meetings, and they see it works. They see,
right.
okay, years ago, mommy was good when she was in the meetings, then stopped, and everything went to shit. Mom's in the meetings again. Things are okay. So I think they do see that it does help me. And now that they're older, I'm able to, they could stay home. I don't have to worry about babysitting or
Right.
things like that. It's easier for me to be more involved.
Yeah, so they do they remind you, or do you find them reminding you of, "Hey, are you going to your meeting today?" Do they like put their little feelers out there to make sure you're on track?
Not so much because they know I do the Zoom one every night. So
Oh,
they know that when I go upstairs, okay, I'm going to my meeting. Or if they call me and I don't answer and they come in why don't you answer? And then I just show them my phone and then they say, oh, okay, because they know I'm on the meeting. So they
right.
pretty much know. Now I'm sure if I start like not doing those things, then they'll start questioning me like, hey, why aren't you on your meeting?
Right. I had another question for you, and it's with sponsorship. Um, you mentioned you had 3 years, your first go around or one of the go arounds in meetings. How do you utilize a sponsor, as you're facing dilemmas or situations on a daily basis? Like, how does that look? How do you find yourself using your sponsor?
Well, I will say, the first year that I came back, I had, I was more doing in person than Zoom, so to
Mhm,
say. So I would see my sponsor at the same meeting on Wednesdays. We would see each other then
mhm,
and, at least talk or text every single day. Um, I'm not going to lie, I've fallen short since then with keeping up with communicating with her. We still talk and text, just not as often. So that's like on one of my lists, like of things I have to do is calling her more. And because she has a very busy life herself, she has little kids. So
mhm.
she only goes to one meeting that I know I would see her a week. So I need to make more of a point to get back to that meeting, so we can have more face to face communication.
Right,
I recently completed my step one. I've been doing it a little bit slower this time. I feel like last time I like rushed through the steps. Like I said, I did do all 12 of them the first time, but this time I'm really taking my time with it.
right.
And I wanted to actually work for me. So we do have to go over my step one so I can move on to the second step.
Right. Step one is everybody thinks that, oh, step one is just, admitting or just saying that you're an addict. It's so much deeper than that. It's surrendering, knowing, identifying that you're an addict, realizing that, my life is unmanageable and that my
Mm-hmm.
life is, I'm powerless over my addiction and that my life has become unmanageable. And I feel that there's even a part three to that, and it's looking at reservations.
Yes.
Just absolutely knowing that, I'm an addict, I'm powerless over it, and my life is unmanageable with or without drugs. Just meaning that even when I'm clean, I don't really know how to live just because of the way I've lived my whole life. And once somebody surrenders, I feel that it really opens the door to recovery, like hitting a bottom. And I know some people feel that the bottom's not necessary, and I've kind of played with the assumption of a high bottom, like somebody doesn't necessarily have to lose everything to kind of figure out that they're struggling or that they need meetings or something, as far as addiction is concerned. How do you feel about that? Do you feel that somebody has to hit a bottom before they?
I mean, I think it's everyone's bottoms looks different
Right.
because we've all been through different things.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean, the first time, I mean, look, I lost my kids, my house, my job, everything. You would think that that was a bottom enough to not make you use again, but that wasn't the case.
Right.
This time, I didn't lose all of those things. But for me, just being sick from the alcohol and looking back at what I went through before, that was enough for me to say, I know if I continue this, it's going to get worse. And that I luckily I was able to, stop when I did, but I most likely would have lost my job, my house, and everything else all over again if I kept up the drinking. I mean, that's inevitable what happens when I use. Um,
Absolutely. And the severity of your drinking, like you said, you were sick, it affected you, worse,
Physically.
yeah, worse than what you had thought. And that's just the substitution, one for the other. And what is it that your daily routine is? Do you like pray, meditate, journal? Do you do any of that stuff on a daily basis? What do your days look like to stay clean?
I do pray every day. I try and take a 10-step inventory not every single day, but I try to leave some of the questions in my head, to see, how I was for the day. Today, for example, too, I was at the lake with my daughter. I brought my Living Clean book and was reading out of that. Um, and like I said, I do the Zoom meetings every night. So every day I do have some type of, recovery related things. I have a friend that sends me the just for today every single morning, like clockwork. So before my alarm even goes off, the first text is the just for today. So there's no forgetting to even read that. So that immediately starts my day. Before I pray, is reading that as soon as I wake up. And that, a lot of times when I read it, I'll say, okay, I'm, going to try to be positive at work. I'm not going to let these coworkers piss me off today, and I'll try. I sometimes fall short, but I feel like starting with reading the just for today definitely helps me set the mood for the day.
Right. Um, Another aspect of it, and I'm sure my viewers and our viewers want to know, how do you deal with like cravings or triggers or maybe old, people you used to use with that you might see on the street, or maybe you go by a Burger King or something that I know for me, I used to sit in the Burger King parking lot and wait for people there. How do you deal with that when it arises?
Well, for the most part, I've completely cut out the people that I used to use with, whether it was drugs or drinking.
Hmm.
Um, and they understand that I had to.
Right,
Whether it's family, close friends, if there's alcohol around, I do not go. I just
right.
don't put myself in the situation. And if you want to get mad at me, you can get mad at me. But they have to understand that for me now, my recovery has to be the most important thing.
Mhm.
So I really cut it. Like I said, I cut out the people. Places could be a little difficult because I am living in the town now, where I had to live in the welfare hotel when I was telling you I was homeless.
Mhm.
So that sometimes brings back memories, and I cringe when I think about it.
Mhm.
But in a way, it's kind of good because it keeps it green for me. Like, hey, remember where you can end up again if you fall off track.
Mhm. Absolutely. And they say that, when a relapse does happen, we end up where we were at our worst point in almost no time at all. So it's really there's a lot at stake when we take chances of doing those things like going to a Christmas party where there's alcohol or going to a picnic or to the beach or especially now that it's summertime. I know for me when I go anywhere with water, I get that craving or that trigger to want to use, and I got to call my sponsor, and he talks me out of it. Even if it's only a 2 or 3 minute phone call, I get redirected, and I don't
Hmm.
know what it is about that works, but it's like that's why it's important to build that fellowship, that network of people that you can call. And I know for me, it was my phone weighed 500 pounds. And to make a good routine or like to learn how to call, I was calling when things were good. I wasn't just calling when things were bad. Like
Right.
I would just call to say hello. And I got into the habit of calling. It wasn't like so, awkward to call when things were bad. And they always say call before you use.
Yes.
And yeah, so I do you currently sponsor anybody or
I
help with
don't.
anybody? Oh, okay.
I mean, I'm able to if I'm asked. I'm
Right,
just not right now. I haven't been asked, but I am able to, and I would be willing to if somebody asked me. I just don't have any right now.
right.
I did have sponsees in the past, when I had the 3 years before I went out. And I feel like that was also a good thing for me too, because it also kept me in check knowing that someone else is depending on me.
Right. Absolutely. Making those daily commitments to meet somebody at a meeting, sometimes that's just enough in itself to keep us in line with what we're doing. Oh, I can't do this. I got to meet so and so at 7 o'clock or
Yeah.
what have you. And what was I going to say? Yeah, and just keeping focused and learning how to deal with cravings and triggers can really set the stage for making a better life, learning to live without using drugs over every little thing that happened, learning to, I used to live in fear, and once I learned how to live just for today and not worry about years down the road, I used to feel it in my stomach like, oh, I can't use anything for the rest of my life. I didn't want to admit that I didn't have control,
Right.
because I built the life that I had, or I did good things too, not just bad things. But when I take control and make decisions without bouncing them off somebody, it usually doesn't end well. I find
Yes.
myself places that I shouldn't be, and yeah, so I wanted to say when you were in when you had the 3 years and you were going to HI, how did that make you feel? Did you go to rehabs or hospitals? Which one was it?
It was rehabs that I had personally went to, and it was like such a rewarding feeling. And it I always like felt so much better. Like I mean, I always get nervous when I share. I mean, I still do. That's just in my nature. But once that like nervousness went away, and I just told my story how it is, because that's my story. It doesn't change. Um, and I got, feedback from the other ladies that were in there, and they're hugging me, telling me thank you. There's like no feeling like it, to know that like you're actually helping somebody just by sharing what you went through.
Right.
So that is something, one of my goals that I do want to get back into is the H&I as well.
Yeah, that's a great way to help and carry the message, and just being able to walk in there and sit down and to identify where the person's at. You're meeting them where they're at. And
So,
the lived experience, like for me and you, we've been in those shoes. We know what they're thinking, and some people there just think, well, I've done it. I'm guilty. I've done it. Using rehab as like a waiting room to go, before I go and get high again. Like I wasn't doing it for myself. I was just there for all the wrong reasons. I was there for my mother or my dad or my kids or whatever. I wasn't there for me.
right.
And even when I did go for me, I was getting out and relapsing. And I couldn't figure out why. I'm like, why am I relapsing? And it took me like 3 times to go to rehab, complete the program, get out. I would relapse. The last time I started to look into the spiritual part of things. And before I just pick and choose the parts of recovery that I wanted to work on.
Right.
And then this last time I said, all right, that's it. I'm doing every possible thing. Like I am just going to do everything. Even the things that made me feel uncomfortable, I was doing. And I don't know how, I can't explain it. I stopped trying to stay clean. And it just, when you're living the program and you're making it a part of your life, it's like you don't, you stop trying to stay clean and you end up just being clean.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. I find I have less and less cravings now. It's
Right.
just like I don't think about it, and I just go on with my life. And, hopefully, can only say what happens for today, but I really pray that I got it this time, And I mean, I know, not saying like I got it, but you know what
Right.
I mean, that I stay without leaving again. And I
Right.
really hope that works this time.
Right. And being that you're coming up on your second and third step here soon, how are you coming to think about a power greater than yourself? Like, how are you navigating choosing it, or how might you recommend somebody else that maybe doesn't necessarily, believe in God, or like they're not religious? What would you recommend to that person?
I mean, I guess I would just tell them whatever, like for me, I call my higher power God. I
Mhm.
believe that that's why I'm here, and that's how I've been through all this, and I'm, still alive and well.
Right.
So I believe that I call my higher power God.
Mhm.
Um, but I would just say to, whoever was asking, it doesn't have to be God. It could just be anything that you want it to be, that is showing you that there's something greater that's keeping you here and keeping you grounded, because you might have done all these horrible things, but yet you're still here today, alive and breathing. And that to me, that is a higher power. That's something greater than ourselves.
Absolutely. Surviving against all odds, and the thing about a higher power is, you know, the power greater than ourselves does for us what we cannot do for ourselves. And in the NA book, it talks about worry is a lack of faith in your higher power. Even if I've heard people say it's the big oak tree out back, or the
A
power of the
chair.
universe. Yeah, I've heard a wide range of things, but just just giving up your will or just having faith that things are going to work out, and taking action when you can, um, to the right things, or in a positive way, doing the next right thing and having faith that it's going to work out, all of a sudden that overwhelming feeling goes away.
And then usually it does work out. Maybe
Right.
not the exact moment when you want it to or how you want to,
Mhm.
but somehow, some way, things are always okay as long as you don't pick up. And that's been my experience so far.
Absolutely. Do you read the NA book often, or?
I do read it.
Okay. And there's a
I've
part in
I've must
there.
have I've read Recovery and Relapse many of times.
Okay.
But yes, I do read it. And like
Yeah.
I said today, I was reading The Living Clean because that's something I haven't read the whole thing of yet. So that's why I'm reading that right now.
Yep. And the step working guide is huge. I worked on that for a little while. Um, you know, and so what when you're going through the steps, how does your sponsor, do you just meet with your sponsor and you go over whatever step it is, or like how long do you usually work on a step for?
It
Depending
will
on,
depend. Like I said, we're going to be going over my step one for the
yeah,
second time.
right.
And I use the step working guide as well. And this time it took me a really long time to complete because I feel like I had like two sets of answers almost from like my first time to like now. So I
Right.
wanted to make sure I didn't really like miss anything. I wanted to make sure that I'm really doing it.
Right.
So it's probably going to take us at least two, times meeting together to go over it.
Mhm.
And then like it's not like she reads the question and I answer it. I kind of just tell her what I thought on this, or she might ask one of the questions, but it's not just reading out the questions and reading the answer, so to say.
Yeah, it's just the act of going over it with somebody else that's done it, and they might have, little stories or information or inspirations that they'll tell you of
Mm-hmm.
what happened to them, just to identify that, like I said, there's another way of life. Like,
Right.
identifying that you're an addict is the first step, and that's the hardest one.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and the denial just kept me sick for a very long time. And I wanted to say, what if you had if if somebody was listening that was struggling right now and was maybe thinking about getting their life together, and maybe they didn't have hope, what would you say to them to inspire them to change?
I would just tell them not to give up. Um, Hopefully, they would ask questions. I would tell them what I went through, to maybe so they could identify or just listen to someone else going through something and let them know that it's not an easy process and it's not going to be perfect, but it will get better eventually. And you can do it as long as you're willing to try.
Right.
And I would always offer, my number or things like that so they could reach out at any time, because I had people do that for me, so I want to return, the favor.
Absolutely. Yes, it's not how many times we fall, it's how many times we get back up. And if addicts are going to relapse, I was called a serial relapser. I relapsed so many times, but it's only got to work one time, like, and I say, unlock your true potential. Addiction is no longer hopeless, and change is possible. And a lot of people don't feel like they have worth, but you're worth it. Like
Hmm.
somebody somewhere loves you. You're somebody's son or daughter, husband, you're a real person with a life, and that needs to be restored.
Yes.
Yep. And well, Jen, I thank you very much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
And to our viewers, if you like this story and you like to see more content, please like, share, subscribe, and thank you for watching.